It's working. How we doing, people? Give me 2 seconds to set myself up here. Just bear with me, people. I just need to set up the other hangout. Should be us. Let me just see. I think that's good. How are we doing, people? He's alright. So, open platform this evening. I'm going to post a link into the chat box if you want to join me. You just have to click it. Okay. I'm open to any discussion, whatever you want to talk about, but please come in with a particular avenue or topic of discussion. Right? I just can't be bothered with mundane drivel. So don't take offence if I feel that you've not got anything to offer and I say I'm bored, right? Or whatever. So please, if you've got something of relevance to talk about. So I've titled this The Implications. It's not a globe, okay? Now what does that imply? You know, on a political, religious, you know, personal level, what does it mean to you? How do you see it unfolding? What could possibly come of it? What are you going to come up against? What are we going to come up against? You know, the whole shooting match. So we can talk about whatever. Okay, I've been involved in looking at alternative and you know, truths, if you like, for a long time. So I can engage in any particular avenue of discussion. One thing that I'm no up on is politics, right? So I have an overview, but you know, for me, politics is just part of the nonsense anyway. So anyway, you know, as I have said, you know, from time and time again, you know, if we don't have the right foundation, if we don't understand where we are, right, and that's your fundamental building foundation, what is it that you're invested in? Is it something that's rooted in something meaningful that could be classed as objective, that is attached to some bigger picture? Is it just a delusion you're involved in? Because for me, if you don't have the foundation, if you don't know where you are, and you are formulating world views and existential concepts and ideas of who you are and your place within it, then you're flawed from the off. Okay? So for me, things like religion, politics, economy, the structure that we have, it comes and is born out of bewilderment and confusion. Okay? Life's a mystery. We don't know who we are. We don't know what it's about or why we're here. So, I know, let's just make ideas up and run with it. And I know that's hard for some people to swallow, but it's the truth. And if you doubt that, you can come in and you can discuss it with me. Okay? So, for anybody new who comes across this, flat earth is just a term adopted by me because it was trending. I am not a proponent or a subscriber of any particular model. I don't care what the actual dimensions and the scope of the earth is. I only care about establishing what it actually is. I do not have a preference or a bias and an investment in anything other than the truth. So if you come here with a preconceived notion or idea of flat earth and try and attach it to me, you are still subject to propaganda influence. You are still under a hypnotic trance of control and influence. You ask people as individuals to define what they stand by, what they represent, and what they mean by certain words that they're using and adopting. Okay? Don't be a moron. Don't come here trying to insult my intelligence and throw straw man propaganda garbage at me, because I don't have any tolerance for it. We refuse the globe. I refuse the globe because there's not enough to make me think, well, that's true. It is seriously lacking. All my direct experience of actual reality tells me I'm in some sort of contained, pressurized level system. The reason I know that is because of understanding the very nature of the world that I'm living in regards to pressures, gas pressures in mediums like vacuums or mediums like water. I understand the substance, liquid. I understand its characteristics, its behaviours. They tell me beyond any shadow of a doubt that it is impossible for me to be living on the claim that I exist on the exterior of a spherical potato rock, pressurised with vast oceans clinging and bending and warping around, maintaining, bending upon the surface, zipping endlessly through a vacuum. To me, that is absolutely absurd. There is nothing in your actual reality that would justify such an absurd belief. The only thing that would justify it is what you see through a TV screen. Now, if that is satisfactory to you, that's up to you. For me, I need a bit more than that. The TV just doesn't cut it for me. People showing me images just doesn't cut it for me. So, anyway, even then, when I use the word the natural world, we have to even look at that as an assumption. What do we mean by natural? What are we attaching natural to? Where's the reference? Just that this is the environment I find myself in, so I'm going to call it natural. But there's a deeper level to that. If you start to entertain the notion that this is a construct, that this is created, then a creation is no natural thing. As a human being, from a human perspective, if I create something, I may use what we call organic compounds and components, but when I put it together to create some sort of construct, you can't call that natural. So even when we're talking about this world, if we start to entertain the notion that it's a creation, what do you mean by natural then? Because unless you have an overview of the actual bigger picture, you don't have a case to call it natural, other than it's just where you find yourself and you're calling it natural because that's how you find it. Anyway, if you'd like to join in some of these topics of conversation, by all means join me. I'm going to share the link in the chat box right now. Let me just make sure I've got this thing opened here. Fuck, where is it again? Oh, it's in the other place. Where is it now? Ah, there it is. So, aye, that's it. Okay, that's fine. Let me just check this. I'm just having a wee test here, people, to see what comes up. That's fine. That's great. So, that's the right one. Just double check that again. So while I'm waiting, if we get any people that are talking about science and think that the globe is scientific, it's totally far from it. There's nothing in the natural world that you could point to as a phenomena and, you know, convince me that you exist on the exterior of a sphere. Okay? We've got somebody here already. Who's this? That you could point to as a phenomena and turn sphere. Patrick. Okay. Patrick. Somebody here. That you could. Patrick, turn your watch page down. Once you've turned your watch page down, you can unmute yourself. Watch page down.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Once you turn your watch page, then you can unmute yourself.
Turn the watch page down.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Once you turn the watch page.
I'm going to keep muting you, Patrick, until you understand. Turn the watch. See the YouTube part that you're looking at? You need to turn the volume down on that. Okay? Let me know when you've sussed it. Anybody else that's going to join, if you're watching this on YouTube and you decide that you're going to join in, see the YouTube bit, go to the video where you're seeing me right now and turn the volume down before you come in. Are you sorted, Patrick? Anyway, and we're talking about science. Science is not something that belongs to an institution. It's not an entity that exists out there separate from you. This that you call your body is the sophisticated technology that you experience reality with. More sophisticated than any man-made instrument. Your common sense, direct, realist approach is what matters. What you can verify for yourself, what you can experience for yourself. When you have another human being telling you that something is objectively true, your standard should be practicality. If another human being tells you something is real but cannot demonstrate in a practical fashion, you should ignore it. There is absolutely no excuses acceptable when we are dealing with objectivity. Okay? When we are dealing with Patrick, come on, man. Just get a grip. Have a conversation. Or don't. Run away. How are we doing, people? Ryan Mosh Petroleum, Dank, David Brisbane, Flat Enough, Clarko, Ute, Witty Woo, David Holsworth, how you doing? Don, Robert Reeves, Andrew Calvert, Ute, CC, Neil McCrobb, Patrick Jane, Chelsea Deluxe, West Coast Wisdom, while we are there, hang on a wee second. Add moderator, that should be that. Scott McD, where did I go? I'm good, Scott, cheers. Stephen Watson, Robert M. Chris Hayes, how you doing? Whitey White, UKPI. Love to join and teach you a few things, but it's too funny just listening just now. That's because you're not capable. UK, you're just a shite bag. The reason you're not coming in is because you're scared. Andy Borthwick, belief is a thief. How you doing, guys? Brian Ofsky, Ballbuster. Poppy Sleep, love you. Colshy Cats, how you doing, mate? Parish Mike, Tony Dixon, Pat Mustard, Dave Hinko. Do not shout you out. Too late. Again, I just checked the live channel there, and I checked the thing in regards to the push-pull aspect. So I'm really going to hammer this home this week. For anybody who doesn't understand or is not aware of what this subject matter is, we're talking about motion with solid objects in the real world and what is the force required in order to make an object move. Okay, so I've been highlighting to people the concept or the notion of pull is not really a force. It's always the same force that's required to make solid objects move, that being pressure, push. So even in something like tug of war, where you think, oh, Dale's talking rubbish because you're pulling, you're actually pushing. You're pushing rope and people towards yourself. But you have this language that creates a concept, a faulty one in your mind, that makes reality a bit more complicated than it has to be. So this week I will be hammering it home for these morons I'm going to treat some of these morons like they are just people questioning, okay? Just to make sure the point's been rammed home. Because for me, these things are hugely relevant, hugely important, because language gives us faulty understandings of objective reality and how it actually operates. Then, through that faulty understanding, sophism can be employed because they know that you have a faulty concept or idea of certain things. And if you're in ignorance of these things that will be used, relevant, hugely important, because faulty understandings of objective reality and how it actually operates. Then, through that faulty understanding, sophism can be employed. I can't believe that I've just asked people to turn that the watch page. Once you're ready, Brian or Patrick, you can unmute yourself. Once you're ready, Brian, then you understand the watch page. You alright, Brian? Once you're ready, Brian or Patrick, you can unmute yourself. Fuck me, man. Is it really that difficult? The watch page. Look, I'm just going to keep ejecting people until you suss it out, right? I can't be fucking bored with that shite. Turn the fucking watch page down! Press the fucking mute button on the watch page! Fuck me! Absolute fucking morons, man! It's no hard. You watch it on YouTube, see the wee sign, the wee microphone sign, the wee fucking shape that you turn the volume up and down. Hit the fucking thing so that it switches the sound off before you come into the hangout. You wanna Rob? It's fucking annoying. Telling you what, I have the shortest fuse in the world for fucking stupidity, honestly. Don't be scared to join. Just turn the fucking watch page down and we'll not have a problem. Flat Earth questioner, stationary plane, how we doing? Ripping the piss. Sometimes it feels like it. Walter Williams, Dank, Andrew Calvert, Scott McD. Chris Monk. Somebody saying, for fuck's sake, join, right? Or I'm switching this off. I can't be fucking bored with this. See you. Where's all the people? Yeah, people are quite happy to jump into hangouts having their ego fucking stroked so they can be celebrities. Oh yes, look at me on the hangout with my expertise. Yes, I am Tinternet guru extraordinaire. Yes, I'll come on the hangout as long as I have a slot to waffle my utter fucking garbage at people without being questioned. Is that why you don't come here? Are you worried? If you're that strong in what you think you know in regards to any particular topic of our existence, what's your problem? There's a screen between us. Probably hundreds, if not thousands of miles. There's absolutely nothing for you to be worried about. I won't bite you. If you're a snowflake, you have no place even coming into my presence. So I wouldn't worry about it. I only want people joining if they've got something to offer. I want to talk about stuff. No, your favourite colour or what you had for your dinner yesterday. Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a chat show host. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe I need to address that with myself. What's happening, Dale? Are you really cut out to be a chat show host? Doesn't look like it. Guests don't really like being shouted at, I suppose. Hey ho. None of the Globe fanatics will show up, and if they show up, they're just going to be annoying. So I won't worry about it. It's here, the open platform's here for you to say what you've got to say. Where is all these people who've got something to say about push-pull, or curvature that doesn't exist, or bendy water, or non-contained pressures inside vacuums, or whatever? They're all very quick to jump into the comment sections. Everybody's good. Everybody's an expert when they have anonymity. Anonymity. If you're no scared, just join me. Am I that scary? Cheers, Martin Haley. But, you know, Saturday night, I like to open up and try and engage in some discussions, conversations. You know, I never really had anything planned for sitting here talking at the plastic thing on top of my TV for 2 hours. There's only so much I can say about bendy oceans and pressure systems. So I'll kick it off, shall I? We'll talk about, you know, as I started this notion of bewilderment. Now, I'm sure many of you out there have had the same through your life. That life and everybody just seems to be going about their business in bewilderment and confusion. They don't know what this is. And it's been accepted that that's somehow just a natural way. Oh, we just don't know and we need to figure it out. What if we did know at some previous point? Have you ever considered that? Have you ever considered that it's not meant to be a mystery? It's not meant to be about guessing from books written by man. You ever think that there would have been an actual chronological sequence traceable to this whole thing's inception? Anyway, I can hear some rustlings in the background.
That'd be me rustling there, Dale. Starts are here.
How you doing, bud?
How you doing?
I'm alright, mate. Long time no hear.
Yeah. I try not. I get to a point where I have to open me blab, you know what I mean?
Aye, that's it, mate. Nice one. Cheers for joining.
It's just this thing with the language.
Yeah.
I know I don't know many people that get on here and keep harping on about what we call the liberal arts.
Yeah.
And how it's being used just as a fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
When you come in here to test yourself, it's stuff that you meditate on, you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm anybody, but I went looking for it, you know, gone 10 years ago. I knew there was something wrong, and I went looking for it, and I knew there used to be a thing called a classical education,
Yeah.
which would be something similar, but again, that's being fucked around with too, like the rest of the shit.
Yeah.
And you go through the steps. They're very, very simple. There's kind of memes, if you like, within it. You know, you have your 3 and your 4, which would be grammar, logic, rhetoric. They usually say in that order, you know. And then you go to number, what is it? I can't remember it now because I'm on air now.
Quadrivium.
Yeah, the quadrivium, you know.
Yeah.
What have you got? You've got number, geometry,
Music.
time or music, and astronomy, right?
Yeah.
And the way it breaks down is quite simple, you know, like numbers are language. The geometry is about space. Everyone keeps talking about outer space. You think you have to get in a rocket to go to space. No, you fucking don't. There's a space between me and my cup of tea there. You can measure it if we use a fucking what you call it. We set up a measuring system. We call it a yard or a meter or whatever, and it's agreed upon. We can measure. That's fucking space.
Yeah.
There's only 3 directions in space. There isn't 4.
Mm-hmm.
Time is a concept.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And time comes in, say, in music. It's a frequency. It's
The intervals.
an interval. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And astronomy is both time and space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think for me, as I was saying a wee minute ago, mate, I don't know what you've got to say about it, but there seems to be another aspect of our history where these things were known and established. So there was a greater depth of knowledge. And through the removal of that understanding, things like the quadrivium and the trivium have been used for the opposite, rather than empower and have progress amongst humans. It's been used to suppress and oppress and to keep people in ignorance. But it's through the lack of understanding of how these things operate that it's allowed it to be.
Well, if you're going to have I'm not going to speculate on how this. I don't know what they're fucking doing or how they do it, but I can see a pattern.
Yeah.
If you're going to have operatives to run your fucking system, you need to teach them something.
Yeah.
You need to teach them some fucking thing. If you're going to have managers, blah, blah, blah. So they use an image of it. It's called classical education. But the biggest thing in that now, they would have acting and rhetoric, you know, rhetoric. You used to pronounce it rhetoric. I'd say rhetoric, you know, it's just but you need to have an ability. This is where the ability to debate comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Debate is about fuck all.
Yeah.
It's about getting a consensus as to who wins an argument.
That's it.
Like it's a fight. It's about fuck all. It's about nothing.
Yeah.
Because people don't seem to understand when you look at the real world. You are not debating anything. It's not a fuck. The real world doesn't give a fuck what you debate.
Exactly.
If you don't get out of the way of that falling rock, it's going to hit you on the head. That's it. That's just not arguing. So you don't argue. You say, look out, or it's dangerous, or whatever. You don't argue.
Yeah. And
you're arguing about debating concepts. Concepts about fucking what?
Exactly.
You know, about what? Show me what you're talking about. I mean, it's very hard to hear the keep coming on. I know you're going on about the push-pull thing. It's fair. I'm driving you. I personally, I just fucking ignore it. You know, just fucking, you know. You'll get to the stage where you say, yeah, I know you don't like the Bible and all that, but where it says in Jesus or whatever, it says, you just click your heels and start walking. You keep walking.
I just want to say there, I don't have an aversion to things like the Bible or, you know.
I'm not saying that. I know you've tried to.
I don't stand against it or you know, think, you know, anything other than it just doesn't satisfy me. You know, that's pretty much it.
The way I look at it there is, I'm not a Bible thumper, you know. I didn't grow up in a Bible thumping house there. It's in the south of Ireland here. What's the so-called south of Ireland? I don't know what the fuck the place is. It's like a fucking zoo, if you ask me. But the Jesus in the Bible, all he talks about is truth. It's the truth you're looking for.
Yeah.
Truth in everything. He even says it.
Yeah.
Test all things.
Exactly.
Test the word. Test all things.
Yeah.
It also says all things are known. All things are written. And as far as I know, and as far as I've been looking, that has been the case. Now, lies are written as well. You have to remember that. There's probably more lies written than there is the truth.
Yeah.
Because there isn't much to say about the truth. It's self-evident.
Exactly.
You either see it or you don't.
Exactly.
If you don't see it, your head is full of shit.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
But people don't see it. People can't see it because of the nonsense that's put in place to disguise it. You know, language, symbols,
go ahead.
Just language, symbols. You know,
Yeah,
concepts.
That's where concepts comes in.
Yeah.
We've been sold concepts and we've accepted them as being true.
Yeah.
And we've taken the concept. It's funny, like we're told things in parables, in metaphors, in allegory, and we accept it. The metaphor, the allegory, the parable as being the true version of reality when it's not. It's only put there to give you an example.
Exactly.
Like you're taking an example of reality and calling it reality and then disregarding reality. It's fucking things are reversed and the wrong way around.
Exactly.
Because metaphor, allegory, and all of that can be interpreted any way you fucking want, other than the way it's supposed to be. If you were with a teacher, we were talking about the liberal arts, as they're called, and I still have a problem with them.
Yeah.
Where we are with them, you know, there's a couple of things, but anyway, we're not going to go into that because then it's not. I'm not going to put my hypothecations or my hypothesis on stuff that it hasn't, that I can't fully understand myself.
Yeah.
But you'd need a teacher who has experience and whatever. Like you're trying to teach your kids and stuff.
Well, for me, you know, things like that, as I keep pointing to people, that the experience is what brings about an understanding or a format of something like the trivium. So social interactions and life experience and lessons can help to map out and understand the mind, the interactions with people, their behaviours, how they put things to you, how people lie, how people deceive, manipulate. You know, it's through experience. And you know, I've pointed at this before. I'm not pointing at the trivium, the quadrivium as the be all and end all. At the end of the day, I feel people have common sense in them. People have discernment. The problem I see is that people just don't have a language to attribute, to attach it to be able to describe and have constructive interactions with their fellow human. Because they don't have the language to ascribe certain behaviours and characteristics, things come out in a frustrated, emotional way that breaks communications down. So for me, again, first and foremost, things like the trivium and the quadrivium came secondary to the practical experience. So it's, again, just to reiterate, people, I don't think these things are the be all and end all. You, as the sophisticated machine technology that you are, is the primary focus. That's where real knowledge and understanding comes from, not from a book.
Yeah, these books that we do, and you can get practical books and stuff. And
Yeah.
like what you were saying years and years ago, I remember going into libraries when I was a kid and looking at all these fabulous books, and a lot of them were written from 100 years ago, and are probably reprints or whatever. And they were all about practical knowledge and all, but they were meant to be read in conjunction with somebody who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like a person who had practical experience of what we're talking about, and it was a guide through whatever you were trying to learn. That's all.
Yeah.
And you would need that as a backup if you're actually going to try and teach. So you going out and writing a whole book for your children, if you know what I mean. You go and you look for one that's good enough, that gives you examples that you can set up, that the children can try.
Yeah.
And it'll give you a simple language. Everything must be in a simple language. You You know, I know we use the word sophisticated and we drop it in out of them, but the word sophisticated actually comes from sophistry itself.
Yeah.
If somebody is sophisticated, it means they're using self.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one idea of how the language has been so fucking twisted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Language should always try to be plain. You know that yourself if you're talking to a child or you explain something, you have to pair off your language. You have to cut your tongue to what you're trying to say. You know.
Yeah, it's always got to be attached to some reference of practicality.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be. I don't know, I heard you saying it, but we learned the empirical method in school when we were kids, when we was 12, 14. When we went in, we did so-called science. And part of it was the empirical method, you know, and it's supposed to be testable and provable, repeatable, you know what I mean? I forget the full definition of it now. I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah.
But it has to be that. That's all I'm trying to say. You can't go beyond that. It must be provable.
That's it.
It must be. I must be able to put it on a piece of paper, send it to you, and say, look what I've done. Is this? Can you getting the same? You go out and you try it.
Yeah.
And if you get the same result as me, then we've confirmed it to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't confirm how far the sun is. I don't fucking know.
No.
And I can't. There's lots of stuff that just aren't fucking falsifiable.
Exactly.
So you stick to the stuff you know, and unfortunately, every part of science or anything that I've ever been over the years, I've delved into and stuff like that. All of it seems to be fucking twisted.
Yeah.
All of it, the whole lot of it. It's incredible.
It is. And people don't. People fail to understand the difference between subjective and objective. You know. So when it comes to, as you say, the language of objectivity, it comes to practicality. You know, in a subjective realm of postulations, concepts, beliefs, fantasies, that's fine, and that can remain within the subjective individual. But in regards to anything objective, it has the language being attached to practical as a must.
Yeah, you have to be able to, and it's a kind of a skill you have to learn yourself. How to be able to express with simple language what you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
You know, it does unfortunately demand a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
Where it's best tried with children to get them, even when they're learning, teaching them to write or whatever. I've never taught children. I know there's loads of kids around me here, but unfortunately they all went to school. But from what I can see is you have to try and teach them to use simple language to describe stuff.
Yeah.
Get them, that's why you get them to write stuff. I know it's hard. Nobody wants to write, really. We'd rather speak to each other face to face.
Yeah.
But if you're going to put forward hypotheses about reality and about what you've done an experiment or whatever like that, and you have to send it off to somebody, you have to be able to describe it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the only books that make fucking any sense are recipe books to teach you how to cook. If I want to make a curry, I'll pick it. You know, the recipe. The rest of it can fucking in the bin.
Things like mathematics, as I've expressed before, it's a great tool for exactly that. When it's a descriptor of tangible, you know, that's the mathematical language you're using is ascribed to integers, provable substance, then it's a great tool for, you know, for us communicating with each other. As you say, I could send you some, you know, formula or descriptor for constructing a particular component or whatever it may be. You can take that language that's applied to tangible and you can put it together and see that it works for yourself. So that's the difference for me. Language is useful as long as it's always attached to the tangible. It becomes a real problem when we have language that's not attached to a tangible reference. And that's what we have a lot of, you know, in regards to spirituality, you know, the ideas, the concepts, the cultures, the worldviews. It's all coming from a place of language that doesn't hold up in the real world.
Yeah. Well, what I would say about the language and the spirit and stuff, I mean, spirit is just what's intangible. Do you know what I mean? It's part of the it's
Well,
like the mind,
aye,
consciousness. Yeah,
consciousness, the
do you know what
mind,
I mean?
yeah, thoughts,
Yeah, yeah,
memories. You know, it's not a substance that you can pull out and have a look at. So,
yeah. We get these things mixed up when we attach these religious notions to
yeah,
them.
and that's it. When we're talking about metaphysics, that's what we're talking about right now. We have to
Yeah,
understand that we don't have anything tangible that we can say for definite. So it remains in the realms of contemplation and concept, you know. But
yeah,
it's not a difficult thing to categorise the conversations you're having with people. And for me, you know, I always expect, you know, again, my flaw expectation, that people understand that when you're having a conversation with them. But I find time and time again you have to bring it back and reiterate that, you know, no, I'm postulating, you know, a subjective contemplation. I'm not saying these things as objective truths. But people always take things that you say literally and misinterpret what you're actually saying. You know, again, it comes back to, I think, language and as you know, expressing to each other the categories of conversation that we're about to enter into. You know.
yeah. The most difficult one, and I'm sure it is what we're talking about now when we're talking about the mind or the spirit or stuff like that. To have a conversation about that, I find it sometimes, to me, sometimes when I think about it, it's like it's something absurd because I really don't know
No.
where my consciousness comes from.
Yeah.
No more than I know where any consciousness comes from.
Mm.
And I'd have to ask me, well, what am I debating? You know, where do we got all this stuff, and it goes back to religion, and
Yeah.
or they tried to put religion over through rhetoric. They use rhetoric to capture it
Yeah.
and to guide it, you know, and create stuff.
That's
I mean,
it.
it's so,
That's
and
it.
it's so insidious the way they've done everything. And that's what I'm saying. Everything I've ever looked at turned out it wasn't true at all, or it wasn't what I thought it was,
Yeah.
or it just seems to be this fucking deception everywhere.
Yeah.
And I can't, and I know in my heart that the only place you can start again is back with the children.
That's it.
Because some people I think are just fucking lost.
Yeah.
Like I'm still lost myself, to be honest, because it's a quagmire.
Well,
I
that's
don't
it.
want to put
Well, that's it.
people down.
People like us have still got a lot of residue left, you know, that we have to work through, a lot of baggage and stuff like that. And as you say, the children, you know, they can be free from that bullshit. But again, it's up to the parents to take responsibility for that and to screen that type of stuff and point it out to the children so that they're well aware of the nonsense and the lies and the deceptions.
Yeah, because we don't know where they're gonna. I mean, it's no point in spare. I don't give a fuck what they do anyway. But I mean, I don't know where they're trying to go with it now because it's the way I'm looking at it now. Maybe it's just me where I'm at the minute. But a lot of the stuff they're putting in front of us just looks like fucking childish shit that
Yeah,
they're trying to get us to believe.
exactly, mate.
And
Exactly.
I believe that they must be dumbing down as well as the rest of the population. Maybe it's the disease.
Yeah.
And like they're getting stupid, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's a mind
it's,
virus.
some of the stuff, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. I know, mate.
And like I know I don't, but to hear you having to go on and on and on and on about the idea that force, you know, has a source point, and it's from that point, the direction you're pushing it,
Yeah.
that, you know, I think you should get it. I never thought about it before. Like, I heard you looking at it. I wasn't looking at it. I'm not a mechanical engineer. And I'm not saying you have to be.
No,
It's
no.
nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that. But I'm sure it's the type of stuff that they would have to look at. They'd have to know exactly from which direction. Like, if you build a bridge, you know which way the forces are going to be acting on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know all of that stuff. You
Well,
know.
it was in regards to motion, but you know, with solid objects and what's you know, the forces that's required in order to make an object move. So I was just pointing out the faulty concept that we have, that I had, of push and pull, and how they're just one and the same thing. You know.
Yeah. I never thought about it before because I didn't have to. Because, as I say, I wasn't in. That's more like an engineer would have to know exactly where forces being pushed, where they start, where they're going to act, and
But for me,
what kind. Yeah.
yeah, for me that's an issue again. Why, how reality operates has to be in a level of expertise. It doesn't have to be. For me, this is the type of thing that children should be getting shown so that they have an understanding, the simplicity of reality and how things actually operate, where it's been taken and extrapolated on into the realms of mathematical sophistry, of fantastical bullshit that's so out of reach from each individual that they can't relate to it. And again, it blinds people to the actual magic of this reality. People are caught up in escapism of fantasy, somewhere else, some other dimension, another planet, another area. Well, if you actually look at reality, this is an amazing magical technology that you're involved with right now. Why would we try and escape it?
Oh yeah. The great thing about it is only children can see that. They don't even think about it. It's just all magic to them.
Exactly.
Even the sensations of watching the kids in the park there flying down the hills on the bike and all.
Yeah.
It's just all pure magic to them at that age, And it's the best time to learn the limitations of what they can do and they begin to understand.
Exactly.
And if you can give them a dialogue with that after they experience it, when they know then what you're talking about, with simple language, it sets it into them.
Yeah. As I pointed out with my youngest boy, he's just turned 2, but he's been on the balance bike for a couple of months. So there again, you have the practical first and foremost. Then you could start to introduce a language as he gets older so that he has a grasp on identifying balance, momentum, force, but he has the practical understanding well before the language is introduced,
Yeah. It has to be. That's what I'm saying about when we were talking about earlier with the books about practical examples at certain ages when children are growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
You introduce them to the real tangible stuff.
Yeah.
And you introduce them to the language that goes along with it. Of course, it depends on their age, what they can grasp at the time, but you introduce it to them as they can grasp it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's where the language, and you always strive to be simple and plain in your talk.
That's it.
Fuck the sophisticated talk.
That's it, mate.
Sophistry.
Exactly.
Keep it simple all the time. No doubt that their vocabularies will grow as they become more adept at identifying quicker.
Exactly.
What's going on, but it's a terrible shame what people are missing out on.
Exactly, mate.
Kind of courses they offer in colleges now. If you look them up, it's as you say, the feelsy good course. The fucking get certificates for fucking anything, and it would have been laughed at 50 years ago. That they would have laughed at it.
I know.
They wouldn't have got away with it, but I mean, it was already slipping.
Yeah, exactly.
And it seems to be heading that way, but there does seem to be a split. There are people, because of the internet now, we can talk to one another, who're just not accepting it anymore. It's just bullshit.
Exactly.
And I hear it from just people like myself around where I live, in this big fucking suburb, whatever you call it. And they're just looking at things on the TV and saying, that's fucking mad. They don't trust authority. A lot of people don't. Some people do.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a divide. Maybe it was always like that, because I can always remember growing up, if they seen the police around where I was, everyone jumped over the walls. Everybody was up to something. I didn't know who they were coming from, but you know what I mean?
The apathy has crept in through technological advancements, making people comfortable, making people lazy, so.
Yeah, it's just distraction, isn't it? It's bread and circuses.
Exactly. As I keep pointing out, we have this, people talk about the bigger picture and where the clues may be, and I continually keep looking at these technologies that we have. And this is what I'm saying about, technology advancing and people don't have a grasp or an understanding of the tangible. I mean, this technology that we're using right now, to me, it's still like voodoo magic. I mean, we've got these devices grabbing reality in real time, turning it into some medium, some invisible medium, sending it through the air or the ether, whatever you like, that's been taken by some other device and transposed into real-time reality. You know, and for me, you know, this is magic. There's an understanding here that we have to get to the root of. We have just taken technology again back to the apathy. Well, I can take an LP and I can stick it on my record player and I can listen to my favourite song. Oh, look at me, I'm so advanced and cutting edge. But you don't have a fucking clue about how that LP, that piece of plastic with little grooves and bumps on it, where a bouncing needle translates into a sound of an orchestra coming through your speaker. I mean, there's a tangible physical process in there that people are just no grasping. That, as I say, for me is like voodoo fucking magic. I don't need a fantasy or some concept. It's happening right in front of us, and we just don't understand it.
Yeah, I had these kind of conversations going back years ago with people about how industry has gone now. There's no more fucking industry left anyway. That we're using stuff, we don't know how it's made, where it comes from.
Yeah.
It comes from abroad. I've no idea. We're looking at these bits of plastic that cost hundreds and hundreds of euro. They're a couple of inches fucking long, a few inches wide,
Yeah.
a couple of centimeters thick, and they're costing hundreds of euros. Why? What the fuck's in them? Does anyone know how they're made?
No.
Does anyone know how anything is fucking made? Does anybody even make anything?
Yeah.
Because they're made in fucking slave factories in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Always split up. They'll make the cars in one spot, they'll make the computer somewhere else. Everything is shipped in from elsewhere and assembled somewhere else.
Yeah.
And nobody has a fucking clue how any of this is fucking made.
Exactly.
And if they took it all away tomorrow, you'd be sitting on your arse with your mouth open and no fucking food in the fridge. Because that's the state they're leaving us in.
Yeah.
Because of lack of knowledge.
Exactly.
Lack of knowledge.
Exactly, mate.
And this just hit me when I said it. Jesus says that in the Bible. My people are dying from lack of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's told he fucking knows what they're doing or what they're talking about.
That's it.
And
They just think that
it's all on missing.
Yeah. That's it.
And I think people want to get off their arse and start doing things, even for themselves, even to learn this stuff. And to go out and try and get some kind of a practical education.
Exactly.
Something.
There's a guy, you know, just for an example, he's called Execrate 200, Andrew, with a channel, and he sent me a video of a facility that him and other groups of people, and they all work together, practical, you know, constructing it, making, you know, vegetation patches, you know, there's whole other aspects of just a wee part of a community there, and you know, if Andrew's alright, I'm going to highlight that because it's aspects of that for me that holds the key for real progress and real understanding. People, you know, helping each other on a practical level and coming to an understanding about the practical world, you know. So there is factions of humanity who endeavour to these things. It's just that the majority are tied up in the hypnotic trance of mainstream media and the trinkets that are being offered to them, you know.
Yeah, it's just sad in a lot of ways. I mean, I sometimes I used to get terrible frustrated, especially years ago before I came across this, before the internet and all, trying to talk to people about what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Like in a rational way, like, I mean, the things people believe in, and they're just beliefs. They're not based on anything.
No.
And it gets frustrating. And I think now I'm not as frustrated, or as my head doesn't melt as often.
Nah. Once you let go of the expectation of others, that headache starts to go. It's only when we keep tying our expectation to others that we start to get frustrated and annoyed, you know.
Yeah, it's just I'm at a point now that the only real thing that I can do in my life, and I'm just coming on here to say this, anyone listening who's kind of sitting down on the sofa every fucking night, nothing to do but listen to this, maybe even believes in it's not a globe, and but they don't know what it is. I don't know what the fucking place is, to be honest with you. It's not a globe. I mean, I'm looking at it. Fucking bullshit. I don't know why I didn't say it. The minute it was said to me and I thought about it for 5 minutes, I understood immediately because I had an idea about geometry from school.
Yeah.
You'd be able to see this fucking curve and I can't.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
That's
And
it.
what you call it, the real thing we should be doing is just to go out and learn these simple books. Go and look for them. Practical applications, how to do things, how to fucking make a suit of clothes for yourself even. Any fucking thing.
Yeah.
Because it may come in useful to you, but we can't be selfish. I mean, we'd have to go and look for people. I'm not saying join a group, fuck the groups. I know what you're talking about there. Fuck ideology or any kind of anything that has a mission statement.
Yeah.
Just get together with people you know and you can trust as far as humanly possible for you to trust and share with them.
Exactly.
You have to. You've no choice. There's no choice.
Exactly.
Hey, this is fucking gone. And I don't think I'll be here much longer. A couple of years, maybe 15, another 15 years if I'm lucky, and I'll fucking be packing my clogs. And that's just the way of it. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, because I can't expect any more than that. And it's just the greatest sadness in me, in my life, and as I look back and see all the little kids and they're not learning anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. Well,
so.
Sorry, mate, I thought you were going to keep speaking there. It's just up to us. It's up to each individual to stand up for what they know to be true and to pass that on to the future generations. That's your responsibility as far as I'm concerned, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I was thinking of doing various things, but the way my head has gone over the basket for a lot of years now, a lot of stuff that I had been looking into, there's too much to pick, so I'm going to pick something simple that I can do simply, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to read every fucking book in the library. I don't have to. Once you get this, that you're everything must come. If I'm going to take an action, I'm going to, as far as I believe or know, it's going to be of my own volition.
That's it.
And I'm going to learn something simple, do something simple, and that's all I have to teach. If it's a life skill, they used to make sure like boys and that would get trades and everyone wanted a trade and all that. Now they just want bits of paper about fucking nothing.
Exactly.
Some of the waffle they go on out now about community services and blah, 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 and it all sounds wonderful. But they can't boil a fucking egg.
No.
And it's got to that stage, you know?
Yeah.
And practical things that you should be able to do.
Yeah.
And everyone was taught at one stage. Now, I don't know. I know we could easily despair, but really we shouldn't. Like, I'm talking about myself here, how it's getting easier, a lot easier than it was. I don't feel that fucking that complete frustration because it can make you depressed.
Yeah.
You know.
When you keep attaching your expectation to other people's, it's going to tie you in fucking nuts. You know.
Yeah.
So. Focus on yourself.
There is some good stuff on YouTube. You know, handy little things. I was looking at guys, you know, doing little things with a little bit of a few electrical components and getting light bulbs to work.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's loads of practicality on, you know, social medias that people can adopt and use. This is the whole point. It's not all bad. The tools are no bad. It's just the bullshit that it's flooded with. You know, but if people want, you can find pretty much anything practical out through this tool, which is great. So, you know, it's a useful thing.
But then just to reiterate, people should try and go over the liberal arts, as we call them, in whatever way they can find them and adapt them.
Well, if
there's problems with them, okay, but take what's useful. Most of it is useful. I have a problem with the rhetoric bit of it. I think it's kind of a wrong descriptor of what we should be. My idea of it more about what I was talking about earlier, simple language. It was more used as debates to argue concepts and these highfalutin skills and stuff.
Yeah.
And they thought that was rhetoric.
Yeah.
That's not the meaning of it. To me, you know, it's to speak the truth and speak it simply.
That's it, mate. That's it. Keep the language concise, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly, mate.
If anyone else wants to pop on there, Dale, I think I fucking emptied me gusset now.
Nice one, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Hey guys.
Okay.
All right, mate. Oh, Gaff, how you doing, bud?
Alright, good.
All right.
Hi, Dodzer. Or
Gav, how are you? I'll just listen here for a while before I...
oh, I was just listening as well. Continue if you want, my man.
No, really. I'd like to hear you. I do. I'm interested when you speak, Gav, you know. I know you're really into this, and I know you've been looking at, what's his name, Thomas Muir and stuff, is it? Was it him?
Thomas Reid was the
Or
guy
Thomas-
I think you're thinking of.
Thomas, we used to read Thomas Muir. He's supposed to be middle ages, whatever he was. He was probably only 2 weeks ago for all we know. But,
Well, I think it's just generally the topic natural philosophy interests me, you know, which is, if you like, you know, what would be called science nowadays before it became compartmentalized, you know.
Yeah.
When
that's
it
what
really
it was
was
called.
the study of not only physics, but, you know, about physiology, you know, how you actually function as well within the natural world, you know, when it was all together before it got separated. And, you know, I think that holistic view of things is the important thing that people should look at rather than all these, how should I say, sophisticated departments, yeah, where people are basically idiots in one specialized subject, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to put all that together. Like, I mean, I know I was talking about that we have to share it with people we trust to establish some ground that's real, you know, and what we're talking about and how we express it and how you teach it. You know, the old saying, monkey see, monkey do, monkey teach, you know, it really comes from that, you know, the grammar, the logic and the rhetoric, you know. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
the grammar is learning it, the logic is using it, and the rhetoric is teaching it, you know what I mean? It used to be put in that order.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, these three monkey analogy you're given with the eyes, the ears, and the mouth, basically.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the eyes and the ears that come before the spoken language.
Yeah.
So I think
That's
you guys were discussing, you know, you don't need language for certain things to be able to demonstrate them. You can point at things and people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
People can hear things and everybody has immediately the same belief or knowing that something has happened.
Yeah.
But it's only when you open your mouth and words come out that things start to get confusing.
Yeah.
So I'd rather the monkeys just kept their mouth shut and everybody kept their eyes and ears open.
You know, but I was talking about it from the point of view of teaching it to children. If you have the right intentions in your heart, you give them an example as you're teaching them something practical, and you let them play with it and so on, and you introduce the language as simply as possible, the descriptor of how to describe what they're doing. So it's that when we use language, as you talked about here before, you know, mathematics is the language, you can use it correctly, or you can use it to fucking talk about light years and gazillions of fucking dimensions and stuff and shit like that. Makes no fucking nonsense. Doesn't prove it, doesn't mean it's true, but it's being used the wrong way. That's why I have a problem with rhetoric, as I said when we were talking about the trivium and the quadrivium. Rhetoric is put in there, but rhetoric is often taught as just a complete separate subject as a debate. It's being used the way the mathematics is being used to describe light years and fucking black holes and fucking quantum potentialities and blah blah blah, you know, and it means fuck all. And it's really a diversion, you know. And it's nice to hear people actually who may have been in the system and an educated man like yourself have, who have learned, even if your beliefs were wrong, you did learn a lot of practical stuff, and you're just correcting it, you know, just correcting it the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly. I mean, I always say that, my man, that, you know, all of the science, the mathematics, the physics actually works in our favor if the proper descriptors are used, right? There's nothing actually wrong with any of the mathematical reasoning per se. It's the assumptions and the words that are used to describe and define these things is where they can tell us fairy stories. So, you know, just as an example, if I look at mathematics and I distinguish between geometric construction, i.e., you know, something that a draftsman would do, or as you guys, I think, discussed earlier, the ability to, you know, transport a diagram of something in a scale to somebody else far away who can then reproduce your work. Yeah, that is an example of a practical use of mathematics or mathematical geometry, if you like. Whereas if you look at algebra, where they make an abstract, you know, equation using x's and y's, and they divorce it from any practical demonstration, then that's where they can tell you fairy stories. Yeah, so I'm fully with you on that. You know, it's more about, you know, exactly what definitions and not getting away from something that is practically or geometrically provable, right?
Yeah. Now, I don't know how you put it into practice, Gav. When you're telling people, I do be interested in what way would you? I know listening to Dell there, what way he approaches people and stuff. Because I can go off the I used to go off the rails and how speaking to people, just pure frustration. And I often have to try and, as we're talking about rhetoric, bring it down, find simple language.
The problem I find is the only kind of decent conversation and productive conversation you can have is with somebody who is already intellectually honest and who's pursuing a further understanding. You know, I just get to recognise people who are shut off, that think they've got a grasp on faulty concepts or faulty beliefs, and they're just going to keep, you know, trying to pound that and defend. You know, that always seems to be the problem with people. It always seems to be like attack, defend. When you're talking about objectivity, there shouldn't be any reason to be in an attack, defend mode. It should just simply be a discussion of the facts and what we can practically demonstrate to each other. So for me, you know, I don't even get frustrated with people. I just have to learn the knack of recognising when they've got the shutters up. And I'm not interested in trying to pull their shutters down. If I was, I would be bashing my head off the shutter, getting frustrated and annoyed with them. You know what I mean? So I think a part of the skill is just to recognise where it's going to be of use and where you might have progress and where you're just pissing in the wind, you know?
Yeah, it's just, it is, but I don't know whether there's a lot of people on the channel tonight, whether how many are trying stuff, as we were talking before, go out and try and learn something practical, just simple in their life.
Aye. Pick up a guitar, pick up an instrument, you know?
Well, whatever, like to learn how to do something practical, because it gets you into the stuff. I often go back to making models. I used to make models when I was a young fella. You know, planes, tanks, ships, all of this kind of stuff. And it would show you where all the engineered, and even if it was only a facsimile or a simile of it, it would show you how the engineering works, you know. Stuff like that, like where they used to always tell the children years and years ago to have a hobby. You know, they used to say that because I think they knew it was important, because it teaches you practical skill.
Yeah.
You begin to understand how things will work and how they won't work, you know, and then you have a grasp on it. And it's like nowadays they're all looking at their plastic phones.
Yeah.
I always laugh at it. They cost $1,000 a pop. And they're just bits of plastic. They fucking melt if you left them in the sun too long. But you're paying all that money and there's no thought that goes into it at all. It's just, and that kind of thing makes me despair. Where's the logic in people anymore? You know, I know I shouldn't be saying it, but I'm just getting it off my fucking chest.
No, I think you're quite right to point out the fact that there should be a bigger focus on the practicality of actually learning how to do things and not just theorizing. When I see all the people going to universities, you know, learning theories, and they come out with, you know, as you said, you know, like abstruse degrees and some, you know, I don't want to, say anything nasty about any of these courses, but there's no practicality anymore. And, I think, if you were going to actually learn to be a handyman of some sort, doesn't matter what, then that should be a skill that everybody should be taught first before they go on to do anything theoretical. If you ask me.
Yeah, I firmly believe that every child that goes into school should come out with a trade.
Yep.
You know, what we used to call a trade, it's even the wrong word.
A trade for what though? A trade to contribute to some fucking system, or a trade that's useful to their life?
That's what I was going to say there. They use the language, the word trade. We would just use that in a general way. Like if you were to be taught to say a plumber, right? At least you're learning about pipes, you're learning about mechanics of fluids, you're learning about all sorts of stuff that you can apply in your life with real people, and someone else can learn something else, and so on, so on, so on. And girls were the same. They used to separate the boys and the girls, for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into a sexist argument over anything, but they used to teach them things like domestic, whatever it was, I forget what it was called, home economics, but they actually taught them about food, and there was chemistry involved, if you think about it. And it was the same with boys, I suppose, on another level, they teach them chemistry and blah, blah, whatever it was used for. But you're learning stuff on a practical level. You know how to preserve stuff, you know how to keep stuff, you know it's safe to eat, you know it's good to eat, you know when to eat it, what time of year, blah, blah, blah. You were learning a whole lot of stuff that lends its way to be diverse in other areas, like all sorts of stuff. It's like what you were saying, Gav, about this holistic thing. Each thing that you can teach a child, or a child has a hankering for, that has a passion for something, all children will be different.
Yep.
If you can inject while they're learning, say if some child wants to learn music, it's a great place to teach them mathematics as well.
Yep.
Because it's connected with the music. And that child, if you just put him into a mathematics class, he just wouldn't want to be there. But
exactly. Yeah.
If he had a passion for music and he was shown the time, the pattern, blah, 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 he might dive into it. And it's the same for somebody else. And there it comes down, I suppose, I'm just jumping ahead of myself here. If you have, I suppose I'm talking about polymath, but if you had teachers who could understand that and see that, but then again, they would have to be practical men who had learned in this. Sometimes I just get away in my head myself, and it looks too big of a fucking thing
that used to be the way it was, though. My man, like when you think about the regenting system at the Scottish universities in the old days, then it was one guy who taught you a whole range of subjects, right? So he was a polymath in that respect, and he was trying to teach the kids to be polymaths too. And then at some point they said, "Oh, it's far too complicated. It's become too big. No one person can ever, know all this stuff." So they, then they compartmentalize it. But I remember home economics too, and being able to go to that class and actually remember stuff, and I could cook and feed myself afterwards. And if you look at native, tribes, and apparently the 5-year-olds already know which herbs to pick, which fruits they can eat, So at the age of the 5, they're already self-sufficient, Whereas you try that today in a big city, and the kids would all starve,
Yeah, because that's the thing I always say to them around here. Like when I came home from school, even as a small kid, and there was no one at home, I didn't go hungry. Now, I'm not saying it's right or whatever, because nowadays you have to be careful. But I would be able to go and cook something simple for myself. And I'm not saying, like, nowadays you can't let your child near the stove till they're fucking 11 or 12. You have to have a safety certificate. If your child wants to boil an egg, she has to have her helmet on and her hard boots. And this kind of stuff. And it's amazing that in my lifetime I can see all that's gone, or practically gone. And if they're really hungry and we need it in a hurry, we'd pick up the phone and get Chinese or an Italian or a fucking whatever. And that's what they think cooking and feeding is, pizzas and fucking what have you.
It's became a secondary aspect to living. It's merely an inconvenience now, just gets in the way, rather than their lives being centred around, you know, cooking well, eating well, and that being your survival, basically. You know.
Yeah.
Good point, Phil. Yeah, it's all kind of throwaway items nowadays, isn't it?
Right.
Rush, you know,
but
food to go. You know,
Aye,
nobody takes seriously their nutrition and health.
Exactly, and if you actually apply that and you gather your organic stuffs and you cook everything from scratch and you're preparing meals through the day, it becomes almost like a full-time living. You know what I mean? It's when you're actually applying it properly, that becomes your life, and the family's centered around each other. And that's where your focus is. Your focus is there on helping each other and producing what has to be produced. You know, it's for me. I think it scares people that it's too simple and that life wouldn't be thrilling. But for me, I don't know if it's just my subjectivity. I love it.
I think you're quite right. If you think about the number of things you can learn just in the process of feeding yourself, right?
Exactly.
If you actually have to go and gather it, know what to gather, process it, right, prepare it, yeah. All these things, you know, is a wealth of information and practice you're getting in practical things.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what we were kind of talking about, like this aspect. I know they give it these titles, like we say, polymath and all of that. But all it is a coming together of all the practical things in your life that you need. You know, your food, your heat, your whatever, looking after your house. You're talking about being a handyman, learning practical stuff, plumbing, whatever. I was talking about the word trade. Like when we use the word trade, we mean like it's commerce. We're not talking about. Unfortunately, that's the name it was given. You know, it's really a skill.
Yeah, it's really a profession. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's really the way it's being used, and teaching children about the different aspects of different children, like what they have a passion for when they're young, to try and teach them what they need to be taught through that passion. Because the maths will always be there, the chemistry might be there, all sorts of stuff that when you split them up and put them in a classroom and it's all abstract and it's all mathematics, there's no passion in it, and they can't see the point of it. They want to go back to their music. They fucking hate the maths.
Yeah, and it's disheartening.
They can't use it.
It's disheartening to them because there's no practicality to it, so they just ignore it and leave it in the hands of the fucking priests. You know. I think, oh, it's not worth me bothering about. I'll just leave it up to these guys because they've obviously got an interest in it. You know. Whereas if you keep it attached to practicality, it will always, you know, enthrall a child. They'll always be curious and interested in it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I fully agree. I think when the little engine can't do it, right, then it gives up. Yeah. And if they teach these things so complicated and don't give the people a chance to have a practical usage of it, then it stays abstract and difficult to comprehend. I mean, just one example, you know, the Pythagorean theorem everybody knows, right? You know, the sum of the squares, you know, is equal to the sum of the squares of the other hypotenuse, and everybody knows that, right? But, you know, if I look mathematically, then obviously I can have a triangle with sides 7, 13, and then it will be the square root of 7 squared plus 13 squared, which is an irrational number, right? And I can't do that actually in construction. You know, I mean, a real person doing a Pythagorean triangle would need to use 3, 4, 5, right? Or 6, 8, 10. They can't use all the numbers that they get taught in mathematics. So people miss that connection to the real practical world, you know?
If you're teaching them it in regards to how they can make a ramp for the BMX so that they can fucking jump farther.
Absolutely, they'd love it, right?
They love it, but when you start telling them about that and it's in relation to things that are 3.5 trillion light years away and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to be fucking interested. That doesn't benefit a bigger jump on a BMX, you know what I mean?
No, it doesn't impress your pals in your BMX.
No, you don't get a thrill out of that.
No, that's exactly right. And I know you guys were talking about some of the language things right at the start, which I missed a little bit, but a couple of things that sprang to my mind is, you know, when we talk about substances or matter, you know, something that is real in the external world, then you can basically split these things up into the qualities of matter and then the quantities of matter, right? So, or the quantities of these qualities. And there's an old philosophical discussion about, you know, what are primary qualities and what are secondary qualities. And this actually gets back to, you know, what we've talked about, Del, what's objective and what's subjective.
Yeah.
So, you know, the philosophers of the day used to call that primary qualities and secondary qualities. So a primary quality is something objective in the real world, like something is solid, it has a length, a width, a breadth, it's in motion, right?
Yeah.
It has a form, it has a shape. And secondary qualities are things that are more subjective sensations like taste and smell and color, right?
Yeah.
Where all these things are very subject to one's own interpretation. Yeah. And that differentiation is one of the biggest problems we have in this whole arena, right? That people can't separate these two because A, they don't know the workings of their own mind and differentiate correctly and get told all this horse shit without having the trivium education to seek or to sift through the bullshit.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
You know, these things are, you know, I think hugely important that we need to get that back on track and people understand it.
Exactly. For me, that's a huge aspect of this whole thing is that separation, Gav, of subjective and objective, and then categorising things into those two sections so that people are clear and they can see the defining lines between the two. You know, so I think as well, I would like to get back on that and really hammer it home with some demonstration and some examples of what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, you were talking about there. What was it? You were going to set up the channel for homeschooling. Well, in that aspect of it, anyway. I don't know whether it was homeschooling or more or less how to teach or what you teach or just you know, that kind of thing. Setting up, starting it anyway, and see where it goes. I suppose.
Yeah.
You can't tell with these things. You learn as you go,
exactly.
And I suppose that would have been interesting. I'd be interested, but for myself, I'm going to try something like that in my own way, just for myself. I'm going to try it with myself first before I start. Now, I know I'm on here spouting my lungs out, but before I start talking about anything else, I'm going to try and learn something.
Good.
That just to try and teach it simply without getting into complications. I know it's very hard. You're trying to, I suppose, talk simply about stuff in the real world, and you're having a hard time with a lot of the trolleys starting in the fucking whatever. A lot of these fucking numpties, and you know, and it's hard when you come up against that kind of stuff. I understand that, you know, but just for myself, like, I mean, not everybody is the same. We don't all have the same, you know, I don't know what you'd call it.
Subjectivity. We don't all have the same subjectivity. That's rolling.
Well, whatever. And we're not all built the same way. We're all going to do it a different way and express it a different way. But as long as we're trying to be true about it, you know, as long as we're trying to keep it simple. But now what Gav was talking about there, I remember some of the teachers we had years ago, and a lot of them would have had a classical education, but they were teaching boys in primary school or whatever it was called back in my day. We were just working class kids. They were getting us off the street for a couple of hours. But I remember some of the teachers, they'd be talking about some of the arguments the famous old Greek philosophers used to have about the essence of stuff, you know, and all of this kind of stuff. I think that's what Gav was alluding to there when we talked about tell, smell, you know, or colour and all the aspects, it was called, you know, aspects of a substance, and all of this and how they came to theorise the atom. They were trying to say they wanted to start from somewhere, so they just said it's an atom, and it's the smallest thing that can't be divided. That's how it started. So an atom can't be divided, and they tried to get it from there. They were trying to build an education system. They had to teach us something, and I think there was a lot of sophistry. They were always trying to introduce sophistry anyway, get us to believe shit. So they could construct something without actually knowing what the fuck they were talking about. So they had a point to start. And
exactly. They took away the foundations of that, you know, knowledge, right? And how these arguments were brought, and just taught us the bullshit from then on.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They had to have a point to start,
Just want to say hello quick. Merrill and Wyatt, how you doing, guys?
Hi.
Hi, guys.
What's up?
Oh, well, if Merrill is in there, I'll spew off there because I'm at the bin fucking going on. What fucking times I'm at the bin rattling on there. But no, it was lovely to talk to you anyway. And keep up the good work. It's great to see people doing something. Whatever it is that their passion takes them to do it. We'll just have to go my route. I will be listening. I'm always interested. And hopefully I'll come on from time to time. And I'll try and stay in touch as much as I can and let you know.
Nice one,
So
man.
it's like to hear from other people if they're going to try, do something, do some fucking thing in your life,
Yeah.
Alright, lads. I'll see you. I'll pop out there.
Cheers,
Okay,
bud.
Merrill. Nice to see you there. Take it easy. Bye.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, man.
Bye.
So, Merrill and Wyatt, feel free to join in.
Yes.
If you've got something to say, you can say it whenever you like.
Hey, hi Wyatt. I'll put my video on so you don't feel so alone. How you doing, man?
Alright. How are you guys?
Not bad.
So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, just whatever. We're talking about the implications, what's went on, how we see things, how we think things have to change, what's important, what's not important, What about yourself? How are you with this whole topic, Wyatt?
Hey Wyatt, what's your take on all this?
Well, so some of my biggest problems are right now is just like I've just been recently researching stuff and kind of digging into stuff and just figuring out most of the stuff that we believe in everyday life is just ran by, I'd say, Freemasons or just under the Jewish construct, following the template, and like I'm just trying to see what your guys' take is on that.
Yeah, my take is that I'm not sure if this is a fucking nightmare or whether it's real or not. Yeah. And either way, we need to get the kids out of this mess.
my take.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, trying to figure out those how to get out of the mess.
I think for me, it's just taking responsibility on your own, and what affect and change whatever way you can from your direct reality, and not get caught up in pointing the finger. As I say, for me, we have these factions, we have manipulators, we have liars, but they have just as much right to exist as I have, and they can offer up whatever they like. Nobody forces any of us to buy into any concept or idea or practice or whatever. It's our choice to, direct our volition, our attention, and what we contribute to. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. I don't think there's other people to blame apart from ourselves. If we acquiesce and take everything, and don't do anything for our own self and for our own families and our own friends, and if you can at least do something in that local sphere of influence, dare I say it, then, that's what you need to do.
It's interesting you say that, Gab, because just when I was setting the hangout up, there's an option that you can, block out any swear words or anything. So needless to say, I never blocked any swear words. There's only one word that's blocked in the chat box. Give you a guess at what it is.
A globe?
Hey, first time you won a goldfish. Everybody will be trying to type it now. Type globe in the chat box, see what happens.
So, what is your guys' view? Like, why do you think they lied and told us that the world is round in the first place? What was the point of that?
I think it's a control mechanism.
Yeah. It's if for me, an analogy is human beings are curious. Human beings see a fence. Human beings see a perimeter. They're curious. They don't want to be enclosed in. So you have to be a bit smarter with a human being and make an invisible fence. and the globe fits that perfectly because there's no fence per se, but there's a limited amount of places that you can go. So if you believe that there is a limited resource, a limited land mass or area, then you're pretty much not going to have any curiosity to what else is out there or beyond it. You're just going to accept that that's all that exists, and you're going to sit in your wee box and accept the bullshit they offer you. So
mind
I mean,
control.
do you think we're limited, or do you believe that it goes further out than what we are told?
I mean, the possibility's there. I struggle myself with the concept of a finite area that, comes to an end. I just can't perceive that in my own mind. I'm not saying that's the case, but for me, I struggle with it. I think there is more out there, aye.
Yeah, but now what would be your take on maybe a construct? So like I believe like we're under a dome, like there's kind of a dome over us, and then above us are waters and stuff. But do you believe there's other constructs like out there, like we're just part of another? I don't want to say simulation, but I'd compare it to a simulation. Like there's more other simulations around us, or
Could
with
be.
other people, or different realms.
Could be. It could be a larger, physical realm with contained segments within it. I mean, I don't know.
I'd just point out that with the dome is not being verified, right? And your visual perception gives you a dome-like appearance, so I'd just be wary about jumping to conclusions there.
Even if you go and look at old navigation maps of star charts, you'll see them on a kind of square projection, and it's referenced through like a Cartesian grid reference, 90-degree intersecting straight lines, parallel lines, vertical and horizontal. So, if they were using that and applying it for navigation, then how would you be taking into consideration that it's curved like a dome? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not the case, but I don't know. So something.
All right. Well,
I think for me, I go to the postulations. If somebody's going to tell me we're in a medium like water or a vacuum, then you have to be looking at some sort of containment, so a dome or fully encased or some way to separate the two mediums from each other. But that's
Okay.
only me saying that based on the postulations that have been offered to me.
All right. Now,
Yeah, if you believe there's an inside, then there has to be an outside, which starts all the speculation about, what is outside, right? What's the other medium out with the contained one? So the only other possibility is that it's infinite, yeah? And that But I'm not so much a fan of infinite, because it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It's infinite time, infinite energy, it's infinite everything then, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't know I can conceive that properly, because everything I see is finite, including my lifetime.
I would have to agree with that, but at the same time, I just can't envision what it's like when you get to the outer perimeters of this. I've said that before. Does it come to a definite physical end and then what? Or does it slowly transcend into some kind of metaphysical, invisible, realm? I mean,
it becomes ethereal. It goes from real to ethereal, in 10 meters. I don't know. Well, meters disappear then, don't they?
So it's difficult.
I don't know. This would be metaphysical speculation. I'd rather go there and find out.
Yeah. There's a couple.
So,
sorry. You go.
What would you guys think about like Antarctica or like the North Pole, and why no one goes there, and what they may or may not be hiding there? I don't know.
Right. I mean,
I'd love to go there. Yeah, I'd go to the North Pole first. Yeah. I mean, not only would it might have old answers to the questions that we're asking, but it's also supposed to for example, have the most sunlight of any place, right? It has apparently the most botanical, diversity up there. The temperature is average 4 degrees. It doesn't get to minus 20.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of, you can see the sun going around you all day. I've never personally witnessed all these things. That's why I'd like to. So if I was going to go anywhere, I'd go there. And what I'd love to see is apparently for about 4 to 6 weeks, you've got basically total darkness. That's the only period that's apparently there. The rest, you always have the shimmer in the background or the ambient light. But for 4 to 6 weeks, you can see the moon going around your head all the time. So there's things that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to get the answer to the shape of the Earth, but maybe you would have to go to the South Pole to actually find the containment, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, well, I'm the same. For me, any restricted area I would like to pursue. So wherever they're telling us we can't go, I think we should be going.
Yeah. What about yourself? Are you speaking to lots of people about this problem? Have you got friends you can talk to, or have you got a whole bunch of enemies?
There's definitely like a small group, and then of course there's definitely lots of people that reject the idea just because, I don't know, maybe they're scared or like that's just not what they've grown up really thinking their whole life. So
but would you say
definitely a struggle.
Would you say that it's quite a widespread known topic in your kind of area? Is it well known? Is the topic being discussed? Are people aware of the topic?
Actually, not at all. I mean, there's very little people. I'm always trying to talk about it and open people's minds up a little bit, but it's just not very accepted, especially where I'm at. And I really learned this through a small amount of people. And that's actually, they told me about your YouTube channel and stuff. That's how I figured out about you, is just talking to those guys and spreading knowledge and stuff.
So there is a core, there is a group, there is other individuals who are aware and speak about it actively then?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
How old are you, man?
Huh?
How old are you?
I'm 18.
Fuck me, I wish I knew what I knew now at 18. That would have saved a bit of fucking time wasting, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think about that. There's a lot of shite that I've done in my life where I should have been spending it asking big questions and thinking about important stuff, and what can I say? I wish I was 18 again, Del.
Exactly, mate.
Well, you're just a wee boy as well, aren't you?
Oh, right.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot to learn and stuff, for sure. But
Well, good to see it. You bring hope back to me. Youth is not wasted on the young. Go for it, my man.
Exactly.
Wake them all up.
Oh, I'm trying. But so what are you guys' thoughts on sun and moon? Like, do you think it was constructed, or do you definitely think there was a time before the sun and the moon?
Whoa, you've got difficult questions, eh?
That's a big question.
Mel, you go for it. What was before the sun and the moon, man? God, you could think of anything. You could make it up now, Meryl.
It's eternal darkness.
That's a,
We're just all in the dark with candles.
I think we were all in a Bob Ross painting.
I mean, I wonder why people want to go to the sun simulation and things like that. Personally, my focus is about moving forward and figuring out where we are and why this is happening to us. I mean, that's a focus I can't come away from. I won't let myself. It's too important, and it feels like, like a snowball.
It's impossible, in fact, Mel. It keeps returning like a bad habit,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's time for us to make some ground on this, but I'm my focus is to stay grounded as best I can and not jump off into all these speculative things, because it can just, I don't know.
Do your head in?
Yeah, it does your head in basically, and you can end up more confused than you already were.
Yeah, start with reality first, that's what I say.
Yeah. But I understand the curiosity. I'm not trying to put the moz on you. It just doesn't.
No, the curiosity for me is a good thing, and it's a healthy
Yeah.
thing. But I think the problem comes is when people, through their curiosity, maybe can conceive of some concept, and then they emotionally invest in a concept or an idea or a belief, and before you know it, they're pursuing that belief and they want it to be true. And then on the other hand, you get people who would be disheartened at something that blows that concept or belief apart. So people really need to be careful. Ideas and postulations can be detrimental to the individual if you don't keep a rein on it.
A grounding might be a good word to use. Yeah.
Exactly.
I see it the same way. The how should I say, the teachings of today is all idealism, right? You do a lot of things in your head. People jump immediately to metaphysical speculation instead of getting out and exploring for themselves. Yeah, or looking for themselves, or trying it for themselves, failing for themselves to understand what it is they can't do and what it is they can do.
And I think what you've just said there is a huge factor, Gav. A lot of people don't want to because they're scared of the fail. Because, as I say, they may be invested in an emotional level or whatever, they're creating a bias, and they're scared that it's not going to be true.
Angst vom Versagen. Yeah. Fucking fear of failure. That's it.
Exactly, mate.
Because that's one of the things you go out and you prove a contradiction, right? If you go out and try, and you can't do something, then you also know exactly where the limits are of, if somebody tells you they can do things,
yeah. That's it.
Like bending water, like pressure with no containment.
That's it. Magical realities.
But sorry, I would have said this before. I would not want to stop anybody from speculation.
But why?
It can be good.
But why? I think I'm not sure if you're aware, but people like myself, I concede some sort of intelligent design to this whole thing. I think it was intended. I don't know if that's maybe where you were going and why you were asking those questions. But for me to then say, I know what's behind that, that's where I start to disagree with people. I don't know what's behind it. As I say, I've got my own thoughts, my own contemplations about that whole thing. But it's really muddy waters when we start throwing these things at each other. Again, for what I just highlighted, there's so many people with investments and particular beliefs that they'll fight for it and they're terrified to let that go,
There's a lack of neutral information and objectivity and a lot of belief and desires. Put it that way.
Yeah. If you're somebody who's spent your whole life invested in a particular religion, for talking's sake, that's a long time investment. It's not going to be easy for somebody just to let that go or suspend it,
Oh, for sure. But I just think one of the biggest problems is like most of these religions are really just the same side. I mean, a different side of the same coin. I mean, they pretty much preach very similar things, maybe with very little differences.
Well, I think the underlying thing is that they're all substitutes for the actual truth.
For sure.
Yep, and sometimes it's because the truth is not necessarily what people expect, want, desire, need, right?
That's it.
So they'll shy away from it and attach to something else, right? Because the truth is actually too undiscerning for them, too uncomfortable for them, makes them nervous and anxious, and then we're back in fear again. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why you're definitely viewed as crazy for talking about subjects like this or whatever it is.
Yeah. If it doesn't fit consensus, that's usually people's reaction. And it's part of the narcissistic mind virus that people feel the need to have certainty and control others into accepting the certainties that are being postulated. Because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a constitutional aspect of human beings that, you know, we should have certainty. And when we don't have that certainty, people will just grasp onto anything that they think gives them that certainty. You know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, they'll put too much emphasis on the spoken word, Dell, and not on their own common sensations, right? That is their basic bias from this construct.
Aye, I mean,
right?
I keep saying it over and over again, mate. You know, this thing that we call the human body is the most sophisticated technology that I know of. You know, this is the instrument first and foremost before anything else.
Yeah, you were saying earlier about it being so difficult to understand how a record player works, you know. But once the information actually gets to the ear, it gets even more absolutely magic and complex, and to understand what the hell happens then, right? So that I can sit here and speak about it.
Right.
I mean, it's phenomenal.
But for me, even things like that, I was talking to Marty talking with Marty the other day about this exact thing. You know, even the technologies for me seem to be like reverse engineering or extrapolations on how this instrument works, the human body, you know, and that's where we get these things from. That's just one postulation. Or, you know, a lot of the technological advancements are coming from some other pond or area that some other people like to postulate and believe is the case. You know, I don't know. But I think fundamentally, you know, anything practical reflects something else. So something like a record, the physics of that and vibration, sound is, you know, coming from an understanding of the human body and how it actually operates.
Yeah, absolutely. A vibrating needle and a vibrating eardrum, or there is the exact analogy there. So
Yeah.
I would fully agree. Yeah, that's
the technologies are coming from some natural observation of something that already exists. They don't just come from nowhere. You know,
the one thing that I just struggle with all the time. So I can see the mimicry of systems and components and inputs and outputs and things like that. But I've said this before. If you were to try and build the most powerful super telescope, right?
Yeah.
With all the best machinery and mathematics you could think of, and all the substances that are available to you, a telescope still wouldn't be able to see something.
No, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So you do have to wonder, what else is in the machine.
Well, this is where it comes right down to the philosophical debate: the materialism, idealism. Are we purely material, or are we something occupying the material? You know.
Yep. And I've got no answer for that too.
No.
I need more information, more input, more.
Johnny 5. You know what I'm talking about, Mero, when I say Johnny 5.
Yeah, I do. I'm wanting to encourage Wyatt, because I think a lot of us, mate, we're in a little bit of a limbo period with all this, like waiting for the big surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
And don't feel alone in that, because wherever you are in this, like, we're all in it together, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, but some people don't even realize, man. That's the hardest part for me.
Yeah. I mean, they'll come around eventually. It's just one of those things. It's like, what do they say? The horse to water, or you slap someone with a cold fish. It's either going to be painful, or like you've come to it on your own, or you heard someone talking about it, and then,
Yeah, for sure.
you kept digging. So respect for that.
You can change it all in one generation, my man. You're young enough. Just
Exactly.
make sure your kids are not as stupid as you were. Or I was.
Yeah, we were just really, a lot of us are really
Our generation might have it the worst, though. I mean, so many of us using technologies and stuff like that really kind of take over our minds without us really recognizing it and living in kind of that reality.
Absolutely, you've got your work cut out, man. I'll fucking tell you that.
Exactly.
Tearing the kids away from the phones and the flat two-dimensional planar screens that are supposed to portray their reality to them.
Yeah,
You definitely need to get them away from that.
If kids turned their attention away from just the operation of the technology and started getting to the fundamental aspects of how they actually work, I think you would get a better level of progress. But as long as they remain in the realms of just using them to feed their apathy and to pacify them, then we're going to have an uphill struggle. So, for me, I'm speaking for myself here, I have to endeavour and push myself to try and understand the mechanical aspects of some of these technologies, because as I keep saying, for me, I think there's a lot of answers in there that we're just overlooking. We take it for granted. We're using this stuff and we think we've got a grasp on it because we can click the buttons and make it perform certain functions. But what is the actual fundamentals? How does the machinery actually operate? What's going on?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I think there's certain ways to use it as a tool for sure. Like, for instance, like getting on YouTube and watching like an informational video as such. But like, then there's using it for not a tool, more like a way of life.
Yeah. So it's not the tools. I don't blame the tools. It's how they're being used and how they're being applied. I think that's always a problem.
Yep. If you just look at that guitar lying in the corner, that's such a wonderful tool made from somebody with love and perfection, and people should pick that up and do something with it. But it's not the tool's fault if you play shite.
Aye. Aye.
It's like buying a new set of golf clubs. Oh, this will make my swing better for like 5 minutes,
Aye. Aye. Well, the placebo effect's a wonderful thing, Gav. It may work, as you say, for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right, I'm just going to stick the link in the chat again. Anybody that wants to join in, please feel free to join in. Don't be sitting in the chat box spewing garbage about going to the moon in 20 years' time and all that rubbish. If you get something to say, come and say it and stop hiding.
Aye, bring in the reality deniers.
Aye.
I want.
Lazy boy researcher, none of them sexy, they're utter garbage. Honestly, there's a video there, I'm sure many people have seen it, and I actually never paid much attention until yesterday. And it's the guy with the huge drum with a stretch of lycra over the drum, Gav. You know the video? And what he's
absolutely.
And if you watch that video, he's not actually giving a lecture to children. What he's actually doing is showing educators or teachers how to implement it and how to demonstrate to the kids. And it's absolutely fucking amazing. This guy's representing space-time with lycra and wee space planets and stuff with fucking marbles and rubber balls, but he keeps using the language and referring to them. You can see the interchange happening with the language and how it's portraying things in a certain way. I think maybe during the week, Gav, we'll use that as one of the aspects and rip it apart and just highlight concisely exactly what's going on with it.
Aye, absolutely. So the educators are basically just taking over the role of a repeater, though, right? If all they're doing is telling the same thing to the kids.
Well, what this guy's thing is it's an actual package that I think he's trying to sell to the school. And then he's going on about why it's not in the state curriculum and how it's absurd. Einstein's theory of general relativity, one of the greatest accomplishments of man. I'm like, is this guy for fucking real? Well, he's spewing this garbage at the same time trying to sell these people a package of lycra and fucking rubber balls. Honestly, man, it's fucking incredible.
Beautifully put, Phil. Yeah, that just brings it right home to what a lot of shite it is.
Aye.
Yeah? It's just another way to make a buck, or push an agenda, or
standing there in astonishment and why it's not in the fucking state curriculum. Well, it's because it's a lot of fucking hogwash, mate. You're not standing there with space time and fucking planets. You're standing there with fucking gym shorts and rubber balls. Maybe that's why it's not being taught, you fucking maniac.
Absolutely.
No, it's somebody in and I've popped away. I think it was Robert. It's gone.
Oops.
Sorry guys, I sideswiped the conversation there. Somebody's also going on about Logan's Run. It's funny that because Marty's been saying that to me recently. and he gave me a copy of this movie, Logan's Run. So
I remember that.
I'm going to have a
Was
wee
it
watch.
32 or something? You've got to go and snuff it.
No, don't spoil it for me. You know.
Oh, right. Sorry,
I've not
it's
seen
an old.
Somebody was telling me there's a dome in it, so I'm taking it from that means the dome's true because it was in Logan's Run. But you know, I'll have a watch anyway.
Yeah. That's been a while since I saw that. Jenny Agutter was the sexy actress.
Yeah, somebody
least
just
at the time.
said that exactly in the chat.
Did it? Oh, right.
David
I see.
David
what's it-
Thompson. Aye.
Aye.
I'll watch it, Tony Montana. I will watch it. Sorry, guys. I've sideswiped the conversation there. Carry on.
That's all right. I'm not quite sure where we were, to be honest.
I'm just going to post a link again in the chat. If people
Oh,
see
yeah,
that in the chat box, you just click that link and come in. If you've got something to say, something to offer, there's always experts here. You know, we don't sit in an echo chamber like the Simon-Dans and conspiracy cunts of the world. You know, we sit here with an open platform and invite discussion, but they're never here.
I'll be
So
back
we're
in a
just
sec,
talking on
guys.
like the music industry or like the movie industry and how they influence the population or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's loads of that going on, man. People can be influenced by colour as well. You know, there's so many subtleties, but it certainly is. You know, the portrayal of what's popular and what's relevant, what's acceptable, what people should strive for. The whole media industry is laced with it. You know, subtle, subliminal suggestions that people are picking up on and running with. They don't even realise how it's affecting them.
So you'd say they're drawn in subconsciously as well, like being drawn into things and they don't even realize it.
Well, I think there's a certain level of willingness also. Again, nobody's forcing them to buy in or be enthralled or intrigued or have the incentive through any of these things. It's a matter of self-awareness and realising what you're buying into. But as children, I think there's a different aspect there of gullibility and innocence that's being played upon. But as an adult, I don't think you have any excuse.
Yeah, you're right for sure.
No.
Because you wonder sometimes with fads, like, say if there was a fad to like strap your arm so you just walk around with one arm, and like Justin Bieber is doing that, you wonder if that's going to catch on, just some stupid fad.
Yeah.
And if people are going to like follow,
Yeah.
you just wonder sometimes the people at the top, if they're laughing behind the veil, behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, at how silly we can be sometimes.
I think any showman and
for sure.
magician likes that, Meryl. I think you're spot on. A showman, a magician likes to, captivate the audience and sell them the illusion,
Yeah.
Robert, how you doing, mate?
Yeah,
I'm
right.
doing great. I was just about to come on, and all of a sudden my nerves got me, and I had to go to a restroom. So I'm sorry about that.
Did you make it? Did you shit yourself, or did you make it?
Yeah, not too many details. Too many details.
I want to know. I like details, Robert.
Boy, something else.
Aye. I've got somebody else as well, Russian vids.
Yeah, I see Russian vids.
How's it going, guys?
How you doing?
How you doing, Robert?
What's up, Gav? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, my man. Thanks.
Good. I don't think many people have paid attention to your great switcheroo. They don't seem to get the difference between visible and tangible. Seems to be going on a lot. So they need to go and watch that until they understand it.
It's actually quite obvious, is it not?
Yeah. Well, once you
these
wrap
big
your
eyes in your head, with these big eyes in these globes in your head. Oh, sorry, that's a censored word. Yeah. With these globes in your head, it might have something to do with spherical geometry.
Yeah.
It's an astonishingly simple concept, though.
Right. I don't think that's been adequately promoted to people to get a grasp on. I hear everybody keep on looking up in the sky, and they really don't get it.
No.
You know.
No.
So,
Well, the material's there. People can feel free to share it with whoever and whatever
Right.
social media. There's nothing here monetized. We don't want ownership. So if it's useful to people, people can take it and share it to whoever they want to share it to. You know.
right.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't. I know you don't self-promote there, Gav, so you don't mention it all the time, but it needs to be mentioned every now and then because a lot of people are coming to this new, and they don't have that resource like this gentleman that's on with us tonight. That might be really good for him, so he's armed better when he goes into battle against people that are indoctrinated. You know.
No, very good point. I mean, that's what it's there for. So, yeah.
Right.
I'll maybe I mean, I could just upload it again, but again, it's there, and you know, we can make it relevant at a time if it's been pushed out of the search listings and keep it up there. But again, if things are useful information, everybody that's involved with this, I think that's a problem, Robert. There's not that many people who are really interested in getting to the nuts and bolts of things and having a proper understanding. Again, just as Meryl was pointing out about fads, a lot of the aspects of this is it's a new trend, it's an up and coming thing, it's a fad. People are involved in it for all different reasons, and there only is a minority of people who are really interested in getting to the fundamentals and actually finding out the truths. So I don't know if that plays a role in it as well. It probably does, you know.
Well, certainly, I think you're right on that. Like, and I'm not self-promoting, right? But I put up a couple videos that were less than 15 minutes, and the average view time on them is like 2 minutes. You know, so
Yeah.
I think people. I went back and personally looked at Beyond the Imaginary Curve. I mean, I don't think there's many of your complete hangouts, and I mean they're 2-3 hours a piece, okay?
Yeah.
But I don't think there's many of them that I haven't gone back and watched, you know.
Yeah.
And as well as all Gav's works and Harry Growler and Fouquet and you know Nick's and Merle's and you know what I mean. If you're interested in knowing the truth, you're not going to get it in a 1-minute soundbite.
No.
You know.
Yeah, people are looking for quick gratification and they're not prepared to do the work.
But there's also a reality in there that we have to face up to and maybe talk to. I mean we've spoken about this, Gav. You know, how can we break things down into concise, short jabs for people to consume, because that's the market now. That's the way people's minds are set. They want quick fix. Jumping from one thing to the other thing. Again, even myself, I fell into these traps, and I laughed with this with Des Sherwood the last time we had a talk. I've caught myself sometimes sitting here with 20 things opened up on the top of the screen and reading a wee bit from one, flicking to the next one, or watch 5 minutes of this and jump to something else, and you've got to rein yourself in. I think that's just part of the condition we're dealing with. So rather than us trying to think, well, that's not the way it should be, we need to try and play to that and offer it in small sound bites if possible.
Right.
No.
I just think the biggest thing is it takes years of your own speculation and just thinking and looking into things to really understand even a tiny portion of the whole situation in our life. For sure.
Yeah, but your brain's big enough, my man. It's like a sponge at your age. Just let it grow.
Well, guys, that's why they control everything, including Hollywood. You're not going to get a spot as a writer, director, or producer in Hollywood unless you're a Mason. It's about programming that's wrapped around and presented as entertainment. That's why you have your Star Wars, your Battlestar Galactica, your Star Trek. I mean, obviously, it's all programming.
Yeah. And if you watch most of those movies or anything, they leave you tiny bits of hints and tiny particles of truth within each movie, like whether it's symbols or
well, listen, I said it a million times. They put truth in movies and lies in the news. The world of opposite. They're always dropping hints of the truth. They like to put their Easter eggs in plain sight with their dumb. I mean, I said it a million times. Before you watch any of the Star Wars movies, what is George Lucas's logo? Lucas Arts. It's a flat Earth dome with the sun and the moon underneath, and it's limited LTD underneath the dome. Just Google Lucasfilm, the logo itself. Take a look. It's right there. And Lucas has a quote going back to 1997. Why is the public so stupid? So the bottom line is this: they control every aspect of our society, TV, the movies, everything. So this is how they control the matrix. It's very simple. You're not gonna, like I said, you're not gonna walk up the street and show up in Hollywood and ask for a job as a writer director.
Yeah.
It's not about making.
Not even
It's not about, what's that?
The massive component in that, Russian vids is
Yeah.
that these people can do that all they like. It's people's will, it's people's attention, and where they're placing it. That's the most important thing. It's no, people are not being forced to swallow any of the shit that's being offered. And I agree with what you're saying. Obviously you've got an agenda, and you don't want people to be free. You don't want people empowered. So you're going to screen and make sure that what you're offering up keeps people in that apathetic state. But again, people have to realise that it's not the Masons, it's not the Jesuits, it's not the Jews, it's not the whoever's that they have to hold responsible. It's themselves and what they're putting their attention to.
And
Well,
if I could just, before you go,
Yeah.
I'd just like to qualify that as well with the difference between the word immediate and direct, right, and the word mediate, right? So immediate and mediate are, if you like, the opposites of each other, right? One is a representation through a medium or a media or theatre or film or whatever you want to call it, sign symbols. And the other one, looking at your direct, immediate reality, is what people need to concentrate on. So it's a way of thinking, if you ask me, right? It's a way of how you approach it. It's we need to get rid of, right? That people should not be seeking the mediated representation of their reality.
Yeah.
They need to look for the direct, immediate.
That's it, and I can see what they're up to, and I can see the things that they're putting out there in the news and through media. But then my choice comes, well, what do I do about that? The only thing I can do is remove my attention. I can become aware of it. I can become aware of it and then remove my attention.
That's it, and that becoming aware is the ability to discern, right? So between mediated or immediate, or between visible and tangible, right? If we look at the visual perception part again. So if you don't discern that there is a difference there, then you can't make a choice. You can't not take your attention away if you don't see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And that's what they play on.
Well, the bottom line is they have to control society. If they don't, then random things just happen. That's why they're faking the news, like with this Ford and this Kavanaugh, and with the NFL and Colin Kaepernick. All these things, they get people that are not even interested in the news per se by, create, events throughout, sports specifically, because people looking like they would never think propaganda would be in a sporting event.
Yeah.
So this is how they're controlling it all, and airing random things they lose control. So they get an aspect, and that gets back to Hollywood sports and everything, and it goes back to Germany and Goebbels talking about how basically the best medium of programming is movies, because everybody has their guard down. Their guard's down. They're sitting in a dark theater and they're completely being brainwashed and not knowing it. So when you watch the news, you're like, oh, okay, they might be lying to me. They might be trying to persuade my thoughts, but no one considers that with movies. So movies, that's key, where there's so much social programming taking place.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching a movie that you feel like you're really in that movie, so you're kind of living that movie for.
Yeah, if you're not engaging,
you don't really.
If you're not engaged in your
Well, that's the funny thing about movies is, people watch movies. If you sit in a theater, people laugh, they cry over things that are not real right in front of them. I remember sitting down watching Titanic when it came out. Was it '94? And all these freaking women are crying their eyes out, over this movie. It's I said this might for this a live stream, but I said as a movie, it's part of their fabricated history. From Alcatraz to Apollo 13 to all these events they spotlight as, for example, the 33 trapped miners in Chile. All these events, they're spotlighting it. It reinforced are fabricated. You know, I mean, just real quick. I'm going about Alcatraz. I made a video about it. Real quick. I've been there. I live in the area. I've been there. So go in the prison cell. There's no electrical outlet. Supposedly snuck in a motor from a vacuum. Supposedly, you know, drilled a hole through to make them break. But you go in there. There's nothing. There's RCA jacks or radio. As a nothing ever makes sense with their stories. So
Russian vids.
the bottom line, as I mentioned,
you're breaking up, man. Your signal's really bad, mate. You are.
Okay, let me reboot. I'll reboot.
All right, try that.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else was experiencing that, or if it was just me. I missed a good portion of what was being said.
I said here it was crackling for me too.
Everybody's kind of sticking now. He's there. Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Robert, where are you? Where are you on the plane?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
No, sunny Florida.
One of the few areas in the country still that's experiencing summer, whatever. Like he was just saying about the news and movies and everything like that. It's a little bit off topic, so I'll keep a pretty close tie on it or whatever. Recently, 2 events happened, right, that I think should pretty much kind of thinking about. There's this rolled out. I don't think so. I think Eric broke it on them, but I think they had a contingency plan already in place because they knew, right? So I've been wondering, like, how are they going to deal with this? Okay, because it's not stopping. They can't put the whatever. They can't put it back in the bag. It's not going away. And even with their propped up diversionary tactics, it's on a real ground, you know. Like BTIC, when I first subscribed to it, was far less subscribers than there are. If you larger spenders, it's not stopping. The real part of it's not stopping. No matter, even if the Globers go concave and start trying to rattle us that way, it doesn't matter. Okay,
they have to fake it. They have to fake it more to make it.
Well, I mean, it seems to be the new troll tactic. I'm not taking away from anybody's belief, but it just seems really obvious to me. But anyway, real quick, there are 2 things that happen, and even states and brought up in, you know, the patriotism shit. Our minds are America, and it's not intentional. It's just the way we were, right? The world.
Robert, sorry to interject here. Is anybody else getting robotic sound? I'm not hearing anything that you're saying, Robert.
Okay, let me try popping out, and I'll come back in, and I'll be quiet for a while because I do want to.
I want to hear what you were saying, Robert. It's just that I couldn't make it out because it was robotic.
Okay, I'll pop out.
I could hear you good, Robert. I could hear you good. It's Dell that's robotic.
I hear you fine.
All right,
Robert, I hear you fine.
Can hear Dell. Get that clone away.
Don't have him pop out. We'll all be fucked. All right, but anyway, in the news, and I don't know if anybody pays attention. I pay very little attention to most of it, but people should go what Russia said in regards to the United States and their last minute of the UN address, okay, about the United States more stranglehold as the world reserve currency, okay, and then just yesterday or the day before, Venezuela, even though they're in a shambles, okay, they're the first one to do it. They're dropped, right, as the reserve currency. And everybody assumed in the United States that this Trump MAGA, Make America Great Again, right, was to do that. But if we applied the same logic that we should to everything that we're told, right? It was actually to destroy America. And his trade carrying and the different moves he's been making has been isolating the United States. And with what's going on, he's to drop the dollar as the world reserve currency. Okay, and it may not appear to have anything to do with flat Earth, but they time ago, any but quantitative easing and the devaluing of the dollar, they could have done this a long time ago, right? And they've held it as a trigger for when they needed it. Okay, and many people may not make the connection between dropping the U.S. dollar and squashing flat Earth, but when the U.S. economy implodes, okay, the live on will be last thing on most people's mind for a good amount of time. And for a long time, I thought they were going to do it with a war, but it's much simpler just to implode us. And for anybody that's in the United States, I would seriously look into it and think about what you need to do to prepare for what's coming. Because if they crash the dollar, we're in a civil war within a month.
What people are doing is they notice that the dollar value is going down, so they in like cryptocurrencies or whatever, something that has a potential to raise or whatever.
Yeah, but and you may not realize this, but because you're 18, and I'm not trying to be condescending in any way. Okay, the last one that said that he was going to drop the dollar was Muammar Gaddafi, a longtime ally of the United States.
Robert, let me jump in here for a minute. We have to understand the foundation, and I mentioned to Del, a while ago, how the foundation of this world is a lie with the so-called baller. That's when the foundation is a lie. Everything after that lie, the foundation is a lie as well. So we have to understand all these countries are working together. They're all participating in the same lie of this ball Earth. So everything they're doing is staged, and all these fake beefs, Gaddafi, it's all a fake beef. So it's literally when you have Elon Musk state that reality. No, we don't. We live in a reality. That's what people need to understand. People, when he's saying a simulated computer reality, it's not. They're all working together. Yeah. They're all on the same page. And all these crashes, all these economy going up, it's all controlled. They are like, they want complete control. They don't have control. They don't have 95% control. They are in 100% control. So all these crashes that might happen, it's on their watch if it's going to happen.
But it's
can I just, Del, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but you were frozen a wee second ago. You're still frozen. Your picture. Can you hear me? Obviously, you can hear me.
I hear you good.
No, but
what you were saying. When you guys have the picture. Yeah, go ahead, Del.
No, it's all right. There you go.
Yeah, Del, I was going to just say real quick. You guys have the video playing of your stuff. Of course, the webcam, it slows everything down. So you have a static image like I do. Things run a lot smoother, generally speaking. So just one thing I want to mention. If you have issues with things breaking up, just go to your static image, and then it'll help out a lot in most cases. Just wanted to mention that real quick. But the bottom line is this. Go ahead.
No, I was just.
I don't know how to do.
To people directly as well. Hey,
right.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, if you guys have an issue, that it's just something you guys can work on. No way. Usually, Del's doing it all the time. He doesn't have an issue, so no worries.
Hey, Russian vids down. Everybody's on the same page, and wars and conflict are a combination of depopulation agenda. Theater saying that, but I'm also saying that with our Second Amendment, we're the only country that they haven't been able to disarm, and the only way they'll be able to disarm us is implode our economy, the world